Have you ever wondered, like, why a friend ditched you for movie night or like, why your boss just snapped at everyone in the meeting?
Oh, yeah.
We all try to figure out why people do the things they do.
Right. Like, what's the reason?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be looking at today. It's all about attribution processes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the mental gymnastics we all do to explain people's actions.
Exactly. We're all like armchair detectives trying to figure out, is it them? Is it the situation? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, is this their personality or is something else going on? And the source material we're going to be using to kind of unpack all this is the chapter C6 Attribution Processes
Okay.
from the book Social Cognition, The Construction of the Self in Social Contexts by Ellen Gavrilich.
Okay, cool.
It's packed with all these insights that can help us not only understand other people, but also ourselves better.
And it all starts with this basic idea that we all want to know the why behind actions. Like, we're constantly searching for patterns and trying to make sense of everything around us.
It's like our brains just hate mysteries.
Right.
We have to find an explanation, even if it's not the right one.
Totally.
You know, like I was thinking about this the other day. I saw this guy walking down the street in full armor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my first thought was like, this guy must be like a total eccentric.
Yeah, like what's going on there?
But then I remembered it was Comic-Con weekend.
Oh, right.
And then it all made sense.
You went from like judging his personality to thinking about the situation.
Yeah.
That's attribution in action. And one of the earliest theories to tackle this is Heider's cognitive balance theory. And it suggests that we all want consistency between what we see and what we believe.
So we want our judgments about people to kind of line up with what we already think we know about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like we're trying to put together a puzzle.
Yeah.
If you see a behavior that doesn't quite fit your picture of somebody, you either have to like reevaluate your opinion of them or find a way to explain it away.
It's like we're doing these mental gymnastics to make everything fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes we make some pretty wild leaps in logic to do that.
Oh, totally.
But thankfully, there are other theories that can help us be a little more accurate in how we make attributions.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's hear them.
Well, there's Jones and Davis's correspondent inference theory, which dives into how we decide if someone's actions reflect their true personality.
Okay, this sounds promising.
Yeah.
Like, I need to upgrade my mental detective skills here.
Well, according to this theory, we use three main filters: choice, unique effects, and social desirability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's break those down. What's this choice filter all about?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. We're more likely to make a judgment about somebody based on an action that they chose freely.
Yeah.
So think about it. If your friend donates to a charity because their company is matching donations, does that tell you as much about their generosity
That's a good point, yeah.
as if they donated out of their own pocket?
Yeah, the forced choice doesn't really reveal that much about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the unique effects filter focuses on outcomes that are really specific to a certain action. Okay.
So let's say you have two job offers. One pays more, but it means you have to move to a city you hate. The other pays less, but you get to stay in your beloved hometown.
I think I'd probably go for option 2, even if it meant less money.
Exactly. And that choice tells us something about your values.
Yeah.
You're prioritizing location over money. It's that unique outcome staying in your hometown that really reveals what you truly care about.
Okay, so it's the unique outcome that really reveals what's going on there.
Right. And then there's the social desirability filter. This one focuses on how we're more likely to make judgments based on behaviors that go against what's socially acceptable.
Ooh, interesting.
So think about it. If everybody is complimenting your boss's new haircut, even though it's terrible, does that tell you anything about what they really think?
Not really. They're just being polite.
But what if someone actually says, hey, that haircut is awful?
Yeah.
Even if they know it might get them in trouble. That takes guts.
Right. You're risking something there.
Exactly. And it suggests that they value honesty over just fitting in. So it's the actions that go against the norm that actually reveal a lot about someone's character.
Exactly.
They're willing to risk that social disapproval to just be true to themselves.
Exactly. But there's one more theory we should talk about that adds even more complexity. And that's Kelly's covariance theory.
Ooh, bring on the complexity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, so Kelly's covariance theory says we consider 3 different things to understand someone's behavior. We look at consensus, consistency, and distinctiveness.
Okay, those are some big words. Can you break those down a little bit?
Absolutely. So let's say you're at a comedy show and someone in the audience is heckling the comedian nonstop.
Oh, gosh.
To figure out why they're being so disruptive, we can use these 3 things. First, we'll look at consensus. Are other people in the audience also heckling?
So if everyone's yelling at the comedian, it's probably not just that one person being a jerk.
Right.
Maybe the comedian is actually just bombing.
Exactly. If a lot of people are doing it, that suggests the situation is a big factor. But if that heckler is the only one being disruptive, then that points to something about that individual.
Okay, that makes sense. What about consistency?
Consistency is all about whether this behavior is typical for this person.
Okay.
Does this heckler always heckle at comedy shows?
Right.
Or is this like a one-time thing?
Yeah, if they're a repeat offender, it tells us something different about them.
Right. If it's consistent, that says something about their personality. If it's not so consistent, then maybe it's more about the situation.
Okay, makes sense. And distinctiveness.
Distinctiveness is about whether this behavior is specific to this situation or if it happens in different situations.
Okay.
So does this heckler also yell at cashiers and librarians?
Right, or is it just comedians who get this reaction?
Exactly. So if they're a heckler everywhere they go, that's different than if they're only heckling at comedy shows.
That makes sense.
High distinctiveness, meaning it only happens in this one situation, might suggest there's something about the comedian or the club itself that's causing the heckling.
Wow, this is like a detective's checklist for analyzing behavior. By looking at all three of these things, the consensus, the consistency, the distinctiveness,
yes,
we can start to get a better sense of whether someone's actions are because of who they are or because of what's going on around them.
You got it. But here's the thing. Even with these fancy theories, our brains still make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
We often fall into what are called attribution errors.
Those attribution errors, that's where things get interesting.
Yeah.
And a little embarrassing.
Yes.
For us humans. Like, how many times have we jumped to conclusions about someone only to find out later we were totally wrong?
Way more than I'd like to admit. One of the most common ones is the fundamental attribution error.
Okay.
This is our tendency to overestimate the role of someone's personality in their behavior while underestimating the impact of the situation.
It's like that classic example of seeing someone litter.
Yeah.
And you immediately think, what a jerk.
Right.
But what if they tripped and accidentally dropped something? You know? We're so quick to judge without knowing the whole story.
Exactly. We see the action, but we don't see all the situational factors that might be going on.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And this can be especially problematic when we're judging people from different backgrounds or social groups.
Absolutely. It's easy to fall into stereotypes and assumptions without considering all the things that shape someone's behavior.
So true. And then there's the actor-observer effect.
Yes.
We tend to blame outside stuff for our own behavior, but then we blame other people's personalities when they do something.
Right. So if I'm late to a meeting, it's because of traffic.
Yeah.
But if you're late, it's because you're disorganized.
Oh, it's so true. We're so much harder on other people than we are on ourselves.
We are.
And let's not forget about the self-serving bias, where we take all the credit for our successes but blame everything else for our failures.
It's like, I'm amazing, but the world is against me.
Yeah, woe is me.
It's a way to protect our ego, but it also stops us from actually learning from our mistakes.
So with all these attribution errors, our brains are practically wired for these mistakes. How do we avoid these traps?
Well, awareness is the first step. By understanding these biases, we can start to catch ourselves when we're making those snap judgments.
So it's like having a little mental warning signal that goes off when we're about to blame someone's personality for something that might be completely out of their control.
Exactly. Are you ready for some more mind-bending biases?
Hit me with them. The more I learn about these errors, the more I realize how much I don't know about my own mind.
Well, prepare to be humbled, because next we have the Muhammad Ali effect.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. What does boxing have to do with attribution?
It's not about boxing itself, but more about how we see ourselves compared to other people.
Okay.
The Muhammad Ali effect says we tend to think we're more moral than other people, especially when it comes to things we believe we have control over.
So we all think we're more honest and fair and compassionate than the average person.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's like we give ourselves bonus points for being good people.
It's like we're all wearing these invisible halos, convinced that ours is shinier than everyone else's.
Oh.
But why do we do this? Why this need to see ourselves as morally superior?
Well, our source material suggests it has to do with controllability, desirability, and verifiability. So we see honesty as something we can develop and control, making it a big part of how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
Intelligence, on the other hand, often feels more fixed and less influenced by our efforts.
And it's easier to show that you're honest than it is to prove you're a genius.
Exactly.
So we focus on these moral traits when we compare ourselves to others.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It's like we're all competing for the Good Person Award.
Exactly. Now, are you ready to explore another bias that shows how quick we are to jump to conclusions?
Lay it on me. I'm starting to think my brain is just an attribution error factory.
Well, this one's a classic. It's called the correspondence bias.
Okay.
It's basically our brain's shortcut for judging people. We see one thing they do, and we assume that's their whole personality, ignoring all the other stuff that might be going on.
Like when you see someone having a meltdown in the grocery store and you think they're crazy, but you don't know that maybe their dog just died or they just got terrible news.
Exactly. We jump to conclusions based on limited information, and this can be a big problem when it comes to stereotypes and prejudice.
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story than we see.
Right. And speaking of how our perceptions are shaped by more than just our own biases,
Right.
there's also research on how culture influences how we make attributions.
This is fascinating. Tell me more about these cultural differences.
Well, one study looked at how Americans and Indians explain why someone might lie. And they found that Americans coming from a more individualistic culture tend to focus on internal factors.
So they're more likely to say that the person is just selfish or manipulative.
Right. But Indians coming from a more collectivistic culture might consider the social context more.
So they might think the person lied to protect their family's honor or to avoid conflict in their community.
Exactly. It's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's just that they reflect different values and social norms.
That's incredible. It's like we're all looking through different lenses, interpreting the same behavior in totally different ways.
Exactly. It just goes to show how complex attribution really is.
It does.
And speaking of complexity,
Okay.
are you ready to tackle a bias that's especially relevant in our world that's full of information?
Bring it on. I'm all about embracing how much I still have to learn.
Well, this one's a doozy. It's called the Kruger-Dunning effect.
Okay, that name sounds ominous. What is this effect all about?
It basically says that people who are incompetent in a certain area often overestimate their own abilities. They're basically blissfully ignorant of their own shortcomings.
Ouch. It's like that saying, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Exactly. Imagine someone who just learned a few chords on the guitar suddenly thinking they're the next Jimi Hendrix.
I've definitely met a few people like that.
And the problem is this overconfidence can stop them from getting feedback and actually getting better.
Oh, so they're stuck.
They get trapped in this cycle of ignorance.
So how do we break free from this Kruger-Dunning effect?
Humility is key. You know, being open to feedback, admitting that you don't know everything, and being willing to learn from your mistakes.
It's about embracing that feeling of, wow, I still have so much to learn.
Yes, even in areas where we think we're pretty knowledgeable.
This has been eye-opening.
You have.
We've really explored how our brains work,
You have.
uncovered all these hidden biases, and really seen how much our perceptions shape our interactions with the world.
Absolutely. And the great thing is, this is just the beginning. There's still so much more to learn about attribution and how it affects our lives.
So where can our listeners go to keep learning?
Well, in addition to Alan Gavrilyuk's book, which is a great overview of social cognition, there are tons of articles, books, and podcasts out there dedicated to studying human behavior.
And the key is to approach it all with an open mind,
Definitely.
a willingness to challenge your own assumptions,
Yes.
and a sense of curiosity about how complex humans really are.
Beautifully said. And with that thought, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.
Bye. It's amazing how something as simple as trying to figure out why someone is late can turn into this whole mess of biases and assumptions.
It really shows you how much our perceptions are influenced by things we might not even realize.
Yeah, and the more we learn about these things, the better we can navigate the social world, you know?
With more awareness.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so knowing all this, how can we actually use this knowledge in our everyday lives?
Well, one area where understanding attribution can be really helpful is in relationships.
Okay, so let's talk about how this can help us build stronger connections with the people we care about.
Okay, so imagine you're in a relationship and your partner forgets your anniversary. Your first reaction might be, they don't care about me.
Yeah, they're so thoughtless.
Exactly.
That would hurt.
It would, and that's where that fundamental attribution error can really sneak in.
Yeah,
You're automatically thinking it's because of who they are. Yeah.
that they don't care. But what if instead of jumping to that conclusion, you take a moment to consider other explanations?
Yeah.
Maybe they've been super stressed at work or they're going through something with their family.
It's like we need to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, especially the people we love. By considering those situational factors, you're less likely to take it personally. And you can approach the situation with more empathy.
Yeah, so instead of accusing them of being uncaring, you could say something like, "Hey, I noticed you forgot our anniversary. Is everything all right? You seem a little distracted lately."
That's a much better approach, right? It opens up communication and allows you to understand each other better.
So it's about responding to the situation instead of just reacting to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this can be applied to so many different areas.
Yeah, like conflicts at work, misunderstandings with friends,
Right.
even just random interactions with strangers.
It's a good reminder that we all have our own stuff going on.
Yeah, our own invisible baggage. Yes, challenges and stressors that other people might not know about.
And if we remember that we can treat each other with more kindness and understanding.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been quite a journey, right?
It really has.
We've gone deep into how our brains work.
Yeah, uncovered all these hidden biases.
And seen how our perceptions really shape everything.
How we see the world and how we interact with everyone in it.
Exactly. And the best part is we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to learn about attribution and how it impacts our lives.
So where can our listeners go to keep exploring this stuff?
Well, besides Alan Gavriliuk's book, which is a great starting point, there are tons of articles, books, and even other podcasts out there that focus on human behavior.
And I guess the key is to approach it all with curiosity,
Yes.
an open mind, and a willingness to question what we think we know.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep learning, and keep diving deep. And this understanding of attribution can also help us see those broader social issues in a new light, like victim blaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. But it's so important to talk about.
It is.
How does attribution play into that?
Well, our source material uses the example of sexual assault to illustrate this. And it's really sad how often victims get blamed for what happened to them. People question their choices or what they were wearing.
It's awful. It's like people need to believe that the victim did something wrong to deserve it.
And that's where this idea of a just world comes in. We have this need to believe that the world is fair and that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So if something terrible happens, we struggle to accept that it might just be random or senseless.
So instead of accepting that bad things can happen to good people, we try to find a reason.
Right, even if it means blaming the victim. It's a way of protecting our belief that the world is predictable and orderly.
But it's such a harmful way of dealing with these situations.
It is. It reminds us to be more critical of our own assumptions and to be more compassionate toward people who are suffering.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this can apply to other types of suffering, too.
Yes. For example, studies have shown that people judge those with HIV more harshly if they got it through drug use or homosexual contact, compared to those who are infected through blood transfusions or heterosexual intercourse.
It's really a reminder of how much prejudice and stigma can affect our judgments.
Exactly. It's a call to be more mindful of our own biases and to challenge those beliefs that lead to marginalization and mistreatment of others.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
It's made me realize just how complex this whole process of attribution is, and how easily we can fall into these traps of errors and biases.
It is complex, but this awareness is the first step towards being more compassionate, understanding, and accurate in how we judge ourselves and others.
So what's a takeaway for our listeners? What's the one thing they can take with them from this conversation?
I'd say the most important thing is to be curious and humble. Question your assumptions, seek out different perspectives, and be open to changing your mind when you learn new information.
It's about remembering that we all see the world through our own unique lens, shaped by our experiences, beliefs, and biases. And the more we understand those lenses, the better we can connect with others and create a more just and compassionate world.
Beautifully said. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.